It's fall here in Texas finally, so
Yes.
we are enjoying the weather.
Yeah, the leaves are turning here. I'm excited, which means we're getting closer to think tank when
That's
fall is
right.
coming, getting closer to shape season.
That's right.
December. Yeah.
We are gonna be getting together. It's a really interesting group that's come together. There's about, I don't know, maybe a third of people who are returning from previous think tanks, and then a lot of new people this year.
Yeah. I know when we got a chance to visit a little bit previously and see everyone that's coming, it even made me more
Yeah.
excited to be able to learn from these people and meet them in person. I can't wait. It's going to be such an incredible group.
Yeah, the we had a welcome call with the first group of people, and it was really exciting. I had a moment just looking at the screen with all of the faces there, and as people were introducing themselves, I was like, I just got really excited about I want to be in that room. And I thought, wait, I am going to be in that room.
Yeah, I know, me too. I walked away from that call just feeling even more inspired and the
Yeah.
opportunity to learn from these incredible minds and people that are just so passionate about our industry and older adults. I can't wait to be able to collaborate, work together. It's going to be so exciting.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I even with just, 30, 35 people wherever we ultimately land, I know that even though we have like 3-ish, 3.5 days together, I'm gonna walk away feeling like I didn't have enough time with specific people. You've been to Think Tank before. What was that like for you?
Yeah. Well, first, I was really looking forward to the opportunity to meet you in person. We had been friends for a
Yeah,
few
that's
years,
true.
but we had not met in person. And so that was just such a treat and be able to learn from you and work together. And then meeting everyone there,
Yeah,
it was so cool. I love the smaller format
yeah,
because you really had a chance to visit, get to know the relationships that I was able to build from that time together have been a huge part of my work and my life this whole past year.
yeah.
So being able to come back to Think Tank, see some people that I've worked with in the past, but then also have the opportunity to meet other people, knowing the impact that that time had on my life. I'm just excited to do it again. So,
Yeah.
yeah, being able to be together in that intimate time. And I think when you do work together and you
Mm,
can see how people process through thoughts and what they're thinking, and you're co creating
mm,
tools and resource for other industry leaders, the opportunity to learn from each other, it
yeah.
really deepens your relationship, right? And the leadership that you have as a team when you can
Yeah.
pull that intelligence from each other.
Man, you're just so in my brain. I feel like that's, we're just kindred spirits to
We
begin with,
are.
and a lot of the way that we think and work is very aligned. But to your point, and really the whole kind of hypothesis behind the think tank was that, in our industry, which is tight knit, which is close, and it's all of those things already. But I thought when I go to conferences, I don't really get to know people's work. I don't get to know how they think.
Mm.
I just know about their jobs, their roles, what are they working on this year, and it's a very quick kind of speed dating kind of feeling, right? And the theory here with the think tank is, why don't we bring together people and actually do some work together? And the only real way to do that is to collaborate on things that are kind of outside of our individual tracks.
Yeah.
It may relate to something that impacts your work, of course, but in the end, being in a small group in particular and saying, oh, wow, okay, Nicole has this resource, or she thinks about it this way, and here's kind of some connections she has that can help us with this project. It really gave us a deep dive into, do I want to work with this person like in the long run? And maybe
Yeah.
that's the spirit of, like, it's deeper networking than just having a small group together.
Right, right. Absolutely. And you learn too, like you said, there were people that I did work with that I
Yeah.
just couldn't wait to work with them again, given our styles or how we contributed. You could see that playing out rather than maybe deciding to do that relationship and do work together and then realize, oh,
Yeah.
maybe we have different ways of going about that. So, but primarily it was we were all there for that same purpose. So really, we all had the vision to want to contribute. So
That's right.
for people that are considering coming, if you want to make a change, have your voice heard, be able to contribute. You've got that thought leadership passion where you're wanting to really make a difference. And I think what was really neat is that it got us out of our silos. Like you were saying, we're used to like, here's my role, here's what I do. But Think Tank is so holistic in its approach. There's this bigger conversation that is encompassing so many different topics and backgrounds and people and the way that we work with older adults, the way that we work with our aging community. So
Yeah.
that piece of it is just so cool to be a part of.
Yeah, it's the small group work, which is really the core of the think tank, is like we're coming together, we're bringing our resources together, and then we're sharing that end deliverable, with the industry at large. Really, the inspiration behind that was we go to conferences or we have these conversations, intro calls with people that you follow and admire. But at the end of the day, we just kind of talk about things, and then it's like, well, hopefully somebody works on this. And I realized, well, why don't we work on it? Why don't we just, yeah, come up with this thing and get together, work on some things. And I think in some ways that this kind of flies in the face of what we all think, that the big ideas and the big like companies and the big industry conferences, like that's the only place we're going to move things forward. But in a lot of my personal experiences, that's where we talk about these things. And I thought, well, why don't we take all those topics that are around, get together in a room, nice, comfortable room,
Mhm.
and actually, work on those topics. So let's maybe share a little bit about some of the small group topics that we're gonna,
Yeah.
tackle this year. The one that kind of jumps out at me right away is a connection that you put me in touch with, which was with Gene Hartnett.
Mhm.
And you even have a recently published podcast episode about this topic. And, it feels intuitive to me, but until there was a name and then an actual discussion about it, I didn't realize how important this was. So the topic is trauma informed care. And so Jean's coming to, help with that small group. We have Katie Roan from Care is going to be here as well. And they're doing some really cool research related to this with Jean. And so what do you think about that topic?
Yeah, I can't wait for this topic because when you think about it, it really impacts all of us. We are all in some way interacting with someone or have our own life experiences where we've experienced trauma in some
Yeah.
way or another, directly or indirectly. So, giving it a place to have a voice and conversation. And I know Jane speaks to like when you bring things into the light, you let go of that shame. And I think it's important to have these hard conversations and understand not only what our older adults have experienced, how we can serve them better, but the families, right? There's a whole family system that's
Yeah.
in these older adults. And as senior living aging experts, we interact with families all the time. They're part of that care ecosystem. So understanding the landscape of trauma, how we support them, what tools that we have to be able to make sure that we are caring for them in the best way possible.
Yeah.
And look at our own stuff, right?
Totally.
As
I
we're
know.
caring for others. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a deep topic that I think if we don't do it in these environments, people may never really hear about it. So I'm really excited about Gene and Katie and others working on that small group. One small group that had a lot of discussion and interest around it that I didn't think would be a big one was around value-based pricing, or even just the topic of
Yeah.
pricing in general in the senior living industry. So there's a lot of debate about, pricing transparency or not. And then a lot of questions around value-based pricing and what is that even and how do you do it? I'm not sure why it kind of caught people's attention, but it has. Were you surprised by how many people wanted to do that one?
I was a little bit. When you look at the care economy, I feel that there is, we're drawn towards maybe more of the marketing or how we can touch lives in different ways or operations or whatnot. So to have the pricing be this big topic
Yeah.
of interest, But when you really think about it, it makes sense because I know from my lens, I hear from families all the time, that is their main concern, to be
Mhm.
quite honest, is how do we pay and provide care for our loved ones and how do we make that happen?
Right.
From the operational side, you have to cover your expenses and provide really great services and do that in a way that's cost effective, but also creates that revenue so you can continue to do the work that you're
Yeah.
doing. And how do we communicate the value of what we're offering? So there are so many components to this conversation, which I think is exciting because it's not only transparency and accountability. How do we, have that come together, but also how do we then share what the value is. And
Yeah.
so I think there's a lot of different conversations within this main one, which I think it's gonna be
Yeah.
really good to see people dialogue about it.
Yeah. A few people in the group have said in their responses as they're choosing their top one and two options, a lot of people are like, hey, actually, these two could almost be combined. And I have a
Mhm.
feeling that'll happen anyway, which is really great about the think tank is that all we're really doing is we're presenting some topics of interest that feel topical, relevant, and across multiple maybe verticals in the senior living space. But obviously people are taking it on their own and just kind of deciding, I like the topic. Let me kind of make it more specific to what interests me. And I think that's really cool. And that is, again, the point of the think tank is that you work on things that interest you.
Yeah, and it's been so fun to see is, okay, you've got these great topics that we're gonna be talking about, but within that, I think it's spurring conversation and creativity about
Mm.
this topic's leading me to think about this, and
Yeah.
this is what's leading me to then wanna tackle this, and so these are great, I don't know, like, creativity
Yeah.
spark where
Yeah.
it's
They're,
like that's a conversation like you said, like, actually, this topic fits with this one also and the brainstorming that happens. So when you get all these minds together, it's gonna be, fun to see what comes out of all of that.
yeah. That's a really great point, too. And it's these kind of novel discussions with people who have a similar, maybe mindset as
Mhm.
you about wanting to make a difference. And, I think for the most part, whether you identify as a thought leader or not, if you have things that you feel like need to be discussed and shared and, talked about in other circles, then you are a thought leader if you,
Yeah,
are putting your voice out there.
yeah.
And so having these little kind of brainstorming inspirations to kind of move to the next level, I think
Mhm.
that's really great. And that again is the point of the think tank that it's not this closed network. You just benefit from being there, but we spark something that everybody else can take it and run with.
Yeah, it's that and I know there's a saying, and I can't think of what it is, but you know how it's like we can hear people through or people might say something, right? But you don't really get a handle on what their intention is until there's action. And
Yeah.
I missed that quote or whatever it is, but you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
that there has to be like, people can tell you things, but until you see
Yeah.
action, then you believe it is my point, and so, what
Yeah.
I believe think tank does is it puts action to what we're thinking and what
Yeah.
we're wanting to do, the intention, right? There's intentionality, but then there's action that follows.
Yeah.
So, it is this culmination of the creativity, the action, the collaboration all together. And then we get to disperse that to the community for the greater good, which
Yeah.
there's nothing better than that, right? If you want to leave legacy and you want to have impact, there has to be something that is created out of it, right? Like people aren't going to just remember what we're thinking in our brains and our thoughts. So there's got to be this what's the word? Like tangible
Yeah.
reminder or a piece of information that we're able to leave behind that
Yeah.
is in goodwill. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big requirement actually of everyone who's participating in the think tank is that you're coming to work, you're coming
Mhm.
here to contribute. And every group has a deliverable that is due before we leave the think tank. And I think that is the part of accountability for us that, you shouldn't go to the think tank if you're like, oh, I just want to meet people and, like, here's some interesting topics,
Mhm.
you are actually going to work and you have a responsibility if you sign up to actually contribute to this goal, that's
Mhm.
deadline, and a specific
Mhm.
tangible thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And, when I remember in our group working together, everyone's voice was heard
Mm.
because we knew that we were there to contribute.
Yeah.
So even though if you're if there's a concern of like what could I say, or is it going to be received, or will people listen to me? Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
There's that space where, because we know that we're responsible for contributing, that everyone was very eager to learn from each other and listen to the ideas that were happening. And I think that's important too, because you want to feel, if you're coming to contribute, that'll be received in a positive way.
Yeah, no, really good point. And a lot of people who are signed up already and thinking about the small groups, another common question they've had is, should I sign up for something that is already in my wheelhouse, something I feel confident in? Or should I pick something that maybe I'm more interested in, but don't have a lot of experience? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh gosh, I love that. It's interesting you say that, because I kind of had the same thought. I'm like, do
Mm.
I join a group where, like, I got this, contribute, or what am I, like, really, excited to learn about and kinda dive into? I think there's value in having some knowledge of what we're going to be contributing to, just so that there's value in the group that's coming together, right?
Mhm.
It's like any group project, you wanna feel you can contribute something.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
whether that is maybe a topic that's really interesting that you don't have a ton of knowledge about, but you really want to learn about it and grow your expertise, but you can contribute. I think there's value in the surrounding skills or knowledge around the topic, right? So for me, I was really interested in understanding the CMS guide program.
Yeah.
I don't know that much about it. I know what it consists of, but for me it was, how can I learn, but given the knowledge I have of older adults and my
Mhm.
gerontology background and my work, I knew I could contribute something, but I will be learning at the same time. So that doesn't answer your question, because I
Mm.
can see
It
both
does.
sides of it.
No, no, actually, that it gives you real insight into how you're thinking about it and how others might want to think about it. Is if you have some contextual knowledge, it at least gives you some substance, right, to be able to contribute to the group. But also, to your point, I think having interest in something alone, that will, motivate you to go do the research and make phone calls and do surveys, or whatever other way that you can contribute to the group. Because that small group in particular, the CMS guide program, nobody knows that much about it because it's a new
It's new. Yeah.
program. Yeah. So in a lot of ways, we're all going to learn as we go. But, again, the point of it is that maybe by January, there'll be some more information out from CMS. But whatever the think tank group puts out, whether it's a white paper or a how to or an infographic, I think it'll be really helpful for our industry as a whole that there's this really simple,
Mhm,
tangible,
mhm.
guide that comes from
Right.
this.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I know it was hard, I think, when I had said what my interest in the small groups were. I'm like, I could wanna do any of
Yeah,
them.
just put me in a group, right?
Yeah.
Right. Mm,
They all just are great topics,
yeah.
and I'm excited to see all the groups working on them. So they
Yeah,
can.
me
Yeah.
too. We should actually just maybe post this video, and I'll put all the small group topics out there in case
Yeah.
it interests people. We do still have room, by the way. There's maybe about 5 to 7 seats here before we kind of cap out on the group size. So if you're watching and you're interested, you can definitely still sign up. You'll be probably one of the last people to join the small group, but we're really just about to get started here on that. The other part of Think Tank this year, which is really a combination of years 1 and 2, now coming into year 3, is the leadership workshop portion of this.
Yeah.
So not only are we gonna come together, do some pre-work, and then work in our small groups for those end deliverables, we're also gonna actually learn through facilitated workshops and training. So the theme this year is all around storytelling, and the inspiration behind that was that I've been meeting and talking to so many people over the last couple of years since I, went out on my own. And there are so many brilliant people and great stories. And I thought, if we all did a better job of telling our stories, the impact that we're looking for could be closer, to our work.
Mhm.
And you have a story, I have a story, everybody coming to Think Tank has a story. But in senior living, I've found that a lot of people have the same kind of components of their story. So it ends up kind of all sounding the same. Even if it's very personal to you, there's a lot of like, well, I didn't mean to find the industry, it found me. I love making a difference. I love older people. And, like there are all of these very common themes.
Yeah.
Not that any of those are untrue, but I've also like, even just for myself, I've had to do a lot of work about what are my core motivations? What is my why beyond this feels good and I think I can contribute? So there's a lot of discipline in that. But the other part of that for me was realizing, I feel like I'm pretty good at telling stories, but like maybe only in one or two formats. And if you're going to be an effective leader and lead an organization to tell their story, you better actually know some tangible, skill sets when it comes to storytelling. So that's kind of how that came together. As a fellow storyteller, you tell lots of stories. I'm eager to kind of get your thoughts on the theme of the leadership development track this year.
Yeah. Well, when I heard it was storytelling, I it was probably if I had to pick what is a theme that I'd want to have talked about,
Yeah.
it would be storytelling. It would
Yeah.
be storytelling. Not only did I grow up in a family of storytellers, I feel it's fundamental. We've been telling stories for centuries. You and I have talked about storytelling. We know the value. I think that when we share our story, people connect to parts of our story and it creates this, I think, relationship unbeknownst to us as a leader, right? And so I feel that when we share who we are, where we've come from, maybe what we've had to overcome, how we come out on the other side, it brings people along that journey with us, right? They can understand our motivations, they can see our compassion in certain situations, have understanding of why we do what we do. And especially from the leadership perspective, if we're leading a large team
Mhm.
and we are sharing our story and can effectively not only tell our personal story, but our business story or, community story, whatever that is, it gives that line of sight vision for all of our teammates and all of the people that look up to us and maybe report to us and maybe the families that we work with, where we can see how we come through a journey to get to the place where we are today. And so
Yeah.
I think from a leadership perspective, storytelling is everything, right?
Yeah.
And everyone I've talked to, everyone that I've interviewed, there is an important story to why they're doing what we're doing. So storytelling is also a big part of our why. And I think,
Man. I,
yeah.
I almost feel like storytelling could just be the theme every year,
Yeah.
things.
Probably. Yeah.
There's so much to know and so much to learn, and,
Yeah.
again, I feel like I'm pretty decent at it, but there's so many different ways and formats to tell
Mhm.
your story. Telling your story in a one-on-one introduction, that isn't recorded. At some point, you and I had a one-on-one first time Zoom call, and we told each other's stories, right,
Yeah.
to one another. So
Mhm.
that's one format. There's the kind of elevator pitch version where you have like a minute with
3
somebody,
minutes. Yeah.
right? And you gotta tell your story there. There's, your written story and all of your copy, your forward-facing marketing material, all the brand stuff of your business. And now there's LinkedIn, there's social media. A lot of organizations, ours included, are really behind the curve when it comes to video storytelling in the social media formats. So, we're gonna bring in a pretty heavy hitting team of people to come and help us learn all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think people in our industry I mean, I've been in this field for 15 years, and for 15 years, I think I've heard all of like, we need to get better at telling our story. Well, maybe this is how we do that. We
Yeah, this
actually
is
learn how to
it.
do it.
Right, right. And to have the training or the information on how to be confident in our storytelling or identify what our story is. We might have one lens of what we think our story is, but when we deep dive or learn or someone can help facilitate that conversation, then we might see parts of our story that really need to be shared that we might not have known that need to be shared. And then it gives us the confidence to tell that story. Because I think if we don't know how to articulate our story, we don't know how to confidently share it. So that's going to
Right.
be really great to be able to learn.
Yeah, I think maybe sometimes it's called like the hook, right? Of a song or a poem, or even, if you're on stage and you're presenting to people, what is that hook? And especially kind of there at the beginning of your story that's going to grab people. And if we don't know our stories well, we can't tell it well. So it is two parts actually. So the storytelling workshop that we're going through, day one is really about know your story. Day two is about tell your story.
Oh,
So day one, we're going to be digging into some real purpose work with our mutual friend Anna Hall. So I'm really excited she's going to join us. So we're going to do some purpose work, some deep dive into our own motivations, and really kind of dig deep. So most of us probably know about, I would say maybe 90% of our story. We know it's there. But like you said, when you're around other people, and especially when you have somebody facilitating it, maybe that other 10% becomes a little clearer for you.
yeah.
And then day two is really around the practical, X's and O's, blocking and tackling of, okay, this is how you tell a story. Here's why LinkedIn is important. Here's why, your marketing brand is important. So I'm really excited about
Yeah.
that
I
part
am
this
too. I am too. Yeah. And last year, what was great was we got to do work in groups. So we'll still do this year.
year.
But this year, just the added time and opportunity to learn more about ourselves personally with storytelling and leadership, I think is just going to even elevate this year that much more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's why we added an extra day. We kind of stretched it a little bit so that we could get the most out of our time together. But I'm really excited. We're gonna be together again. I think the last time I saw you in person was at the think tank. So it's just
I
our
think so.
annual get together now.
Yeah.
But lots of really amazing human beings coming together this year.
I agree. I'm looking forward to it. Counting the days, my
Yeah.
calendar. Can't wait.
Uh, well, if you're watching this or listening to this and you want to join us for the think tank this year or next year, we'll provide a link maybe in the comments of wherever we're posting this. And there's still room. We'd love to have you with us.
Yes. Would love to have you join us and come along with us on this exciting leadership. I'm excited.
Yeah. Know your story. Tell your story. I think maybe that's our hook for this year.
I
So,
like it. I like
yeah.
it.
Cool. Well, I'll see you probably for the next call, Nicole.
Sounds good. Thank you,
All
Jake.
right.